Hey there, and welcome to this video astro alert. It is the 6th of February 2014, and we are going to talk about retrogrades. Today is actually the day that Mercury is going retrograde. He will be retrograde till the 28th of February. That is a standard 3-week, 21-day period. That's how long he goes retrograde for. But I want to add to my discussion today retrogrades in general, what they are, what's the value of them, and point out that we are in a very unusual experience this year of having the three personal planets of Venus, then Mercury, and then Mars. All three of these personal planets going retrograde one after the other. This is very unusual and very beautiful. So let's start with just understanding what a retrograde is and what it brings to us. And I'll use Mercury as my example because this is the one that we're most familiar with. In physics, in the movement of planets, any two bodies moving through space at different speeds are going to have a retrograde phenomenon occur from one to the other. In other words, the perception of the one body, Earth, us, looking at the other body, in this case Mercury, since the two bodies are moving at different speeds, at a certain point when one is overtaking the other, there's a relativity thing that happens that causes the optical illusion of the other object to be moving backward in the sky. You've actually all probably had this experience driving in a car, in the passenger seat, when you're watching another car drive by. At a certain point, there'll be a kind of a moment where the car will look like it's moving backwards. It's not. It's just a shift in perspective as one body overtakes the other. You don't really need to understand much more than that because, frankly, even though I just use those words to describe and explain it, I'm not sure I understand it all that much, really. In my intuitive mind, I do, but, you know, I've just sort of hit the top of my pay grade with understanding the physics of this. The archetypal interpretation of this, however, is very elegant, very simple, very beautiful, and very easy to understand. Mercury is the archetype of the mind, and we are oriented as human beings to perceive our worlds through our minds. And every couple of months, the mind says, wait a minute. I'm full. There's too much has happened. I need to digest everything that I've experienced over the last couple of months. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to turn within and I'm going to go through a little 3-week process where I'm going to integrate everything that I have experienced. And this is what is occurring archetypally during the retrograde process. The mind is turned within, it's busy processing and integrating, and it's this inward gaze that causes the sensation that things get delayed or broken down or challenged out there. My experience is that there aren't more breakdowns, challenges, latenesses during a retrograde period than in a non-retrograde period, but the sensation of how they feel absolutely is different. You know, I have clients who are late or who cancel sessions or where I have to cancel a session all the time, not just at Mercury retrograde. But it does feel different when the mind is turned within and processing and integrating in that sensation that happens during a Mercury retrograde. So this archetypal interpretation applies to every planet's retrograde cycle. But we, of course, have to alter our interpretation to suit the planet itself and what the planet embodies. Venus is the archetype of the heart. It is how we experience ourselves as heart-centered beings. And since that is what we are up to, this is what every spiritual practice is designed to do, is to drop us out of the mind and into the heart. Anytime that Venus goes retrograde, which she does about every 2 years or so, not with any regular clockwork, but approximately every 2 years, when Venus is turning within, we are having a profound heart-opening experience. The heart is turned within saying, how do I integrate everything I've experienced and learned over these past couple of years? And Venus went retrograde at the end of November, and she went direct on February 1st. So she just went direct, and so that whole process, just basically think of December and January as a period of time when the heart center was focused on the inside, churning and processing how to get bigger, how to get more expansive, how to expand its spaciousness such that we could all live in our heart centers more gracefully, more easily. And then just as she turned around last Saturday on February 1st, Mercury was preparing to go retrograde, and now the mind is doing that inner journey. So you see already there's this beautiful sensibility of heart first, then mind. We're building something here, and what I think we're building is an ability to live in our hearts primarily, guided and navigated by our minds in that deft way that the mind is designed to do, and not overly done the way we over focus on our minds, thinking that what we're thinking about is really where all the action is. It's what we're feeling, what we're sensing, and how we're living in our hearts that is really the primal important sort of thing. Right after Mercury finishes his retrograde cycle, Mars goes retrograde. And now this is just crazy to me. Venus, Mercury, Mars, all within one sort of period of time. It's beautiful and elegant, and it's literally the next day. February 28th, Mercury goes direct. March 1st, Mars goes retrograde. Mars rules the physical body and our experience in three-dimensional space in the body. I like to think of this rather than, oh, my body, my bones, my organs, my health, my physical sensations. I like to think of it as the principle of embodiment. How am I embodying the things I am learning? So if Venus ruling the heart, turning within, creates more spaciousness in the inner landscape so I can live in my heart more. And then the mind says, okay, I'll catch up, I'll turn within, and I'll say, how can I release the ways in which my overdependence on my mind is interfering with my heart spaciousness? Okay, I'll do that. That's the process we're in right now. And then right when that's completed, the body consciousness, the embodiment consciousness of Mars turns within. And he spends a couple of months in a backward, inward, guided and directed sensibility till the end of May, where then we get to practice the embodiment. It's the walk your talk time. So again, the elegance of this is stunning. First the heart, then the mind, then the embodiment. And put together, this is it. This is the three archetypes of how we experience our consciousness. Is we live in our hearts, we guide our way with our minds, and we walk the talk. There's a couple of dates I want to sort of put out to you to be just aware of. The biggest process that occurred with Venus when she was retrograde was a sextile with Saturn. Why this is important is Saturn is guiding all of this activity. Saturn is the teacher. So Saturn is sort of the overlord that is saying, learn this, learn this, learn this. And he's the teacher, which means he gives us the pass or fail to move on to the next lesson with, flying colors, or, not so much. So with him interacting with Venus in these three times this has occurred, that's a moment where the teacher and the heart center are actually working very well together. Think of it as like a parent-teacher conference between the Lord of Karma and your heart center. There were two of these that have already occurred, and so I'm preparing you for the third one. So you can look at your calendars and think, okay, what was going on right at the end of November, the first time this happened when Venus was direct before she turned around, November 23rd. So right around that third week of November, what was going on with your heart consciousness? How were you living in your heart? What were you being confronted with that demanded that you step up to more courageous, heart-centered living? While Venus was retrograde and faced, turning within, she did this meeting again, a second time on January 11th. So now look to the second week of January for what was going on with your heart consciousness work, maybe even based on what came up at the end of November. In a couple of weeks, right at the tail end of Mercury's retrograde cycle, so February 24th, give or take 3 or 4 days on either side of that date, Saturn and Venus will interact in this sextile way a third time. Sextiles are creative and productive, but you have to pick them up in order for them to be beneficial to you. It's an energy in geometry that you can do a lot with if you're working with it. So again, look to that last bit of February for some consciousness around how well you're doing this thing of heart-centered living. And just as a shameless plug, if you want to know how to navigate some of these Mercury retrograde cycles, go to my website, michaellennox.com, and look at, consider becoming one of my subscribers. It's $5 a month, and I send out a long article every day, and I will be covering all of the different ways that Mercury is interacting during his retrograde cycle, and of course in the follow-up. And this is guidance that you receive every single day, right to your email box. In fact, it comes the night before at 9 o'clock. For the following day, and it's the least expensive guidance system I think you can find out there. Thank you for tuning in to this video Astro Alert. Please share this with your friends, and many blessings to you until we speak again.